Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Wednesday, June 29th, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. If you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. I'm running a daily $15 MLB best bet, so you can check it out at Pick Dawgz Premium. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Wednesday, June 29th. First up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Oakland Athletics. Cole Irvin and Jameson Taillon are your starters for this contest. Now, originally we saw Taillon slated as a starter for Tuesday's game, but he was moved to this start against Cole Irvin, and I do think this is a good spot to back the Yankees in. Although the Yankees haven't been the best against left-handed pitching in the last 30 days, they've still been formidable and a lot better against lefties than the Oakland A's have against righties. The Oakland A's bullpen is also something I don't really want to back, as we saw in the first game of the series. The Oakland A's had a pretty good lead early in that game, but the Yankees, the comeback kings, they managed to come back in a big way, not only win the game, but also cover the run line easily in a pretty much a blowout win, 9-5 your final. So I can't really back the Oakland A's in this spot. Cole Irvin, a guy that I do think will continue to regress as we continue this season. And although Taillon, I don't believe, is the best starter the Yankees have in the rotation, he's still not a bad 4 or 5 guy in what looks to be the best rotation in baseball right now. So I'm going to take the New York Yankees here and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Yet again, Kevin Cash is at it again with not announcing a starting pitcher for this one, as the Rays are still undecided. We should see Eric Lauer as the starter for the Brewers. Now, because of no starter listed for the Rays, we don't have an official line for this game, but we can look at Eric Lauer, and I don't really love this matchup for him. I know he's going to be able to strike out some guys, as the Rays have had some issues at the plate striking out. But this is also a Rays lineup that's shown some power against left-handed pitching as of late, near the top half of the league in isolated power against lefties in the last 30 days. And Eric Lauer is a power pitcher, so he's going to be able to earn some strikeouts, but he's also susceptible to the home run ball basically at any start he has. And we can just look at his last 3 starts. Against the Nationals, 3 home runs allowed, 8 earned runs. Against the Reds, 3 home runs allowed, 4 earned runs. Against the Cardinals, 2 home runs allowed, 5 earned runs. So he has really struggled with the home run ball, giving up 8 in his last 3 outings. I don't like him in this spot. Give me the Tampa Bay Rays here on the money line. In our next game, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Washington Nationals. Mitch Keller and Paolo Espino are your projected starters. Now, Mitch Keller, I do think, is having one of his best, if not his best start to a season in the big league so far. Although he still has a 4.77 ERA and a 1.42 whip. It just goes to show you that he's had a rough couple of years in the majors. But this is a season where I've seen some promising signs. He hasn't given up a lot of home runs, only 6 allowed in 66 innings. The only problem I have with Keller is he does walk a good amount of batters. Strikeouts haven't been there, and he's facing a Washington Nationals team that's pretty patient at the plate. They limit strikeouts against lefties and righties, so they're going to be able to put contact on the ball and give themselves a chance to get on base. And they haven't had the best offensive numbers this season, but I still think Paolo Espino backing him up is a good spot to have with Washington. Paolo Espino, 2.21 ERA, 1.11 whip. Sure, he doesn't strike out a ton of guys, only 30 Ks in 40 2/3 innings, but he limits home runs, he limits walks, he has good ground ball stuff, can get double plays, and I think he's good enough here against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 2 teams in the Nationals and Pirates that have been near the bottom in the National League standings. This is a game where not a lot of people are going to be watching it, but betting-wise, I do like the Washington Nationals on the money line. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the New York Mets. Justin Verlander and Taijuan Walker are your starters. That's a pretty interesting game here, as although the Mets have been a very good team this season, to see Justin Verlander only at a -125 favorite against a pitcher like Taijuan Walker is a little bit surprising. It does make it kind of seem like they're begging you to take the Astros and Verlander, but for me, I think this total is set too low. Verlander, the issue I've had with him recently is his strikeout numbers are a little bit down. That does concern me against the New York Mets team that's great at limiting strikeouts themselves. They've been great against right-handed pitching in general this season. So I could see the Mets getting to Verlander a bit in this spot. On the other side, though, I've watched Taijuan Walker's last few outings. I do think he is getting a little bit lucky on the mound. We saw the Miami Marlins in the first few innings of that game pretty much crush every pitch Walker was throwing. And now he did sharpen up as his start continued, but he still gave up 8 base hits in the end, 2 walks as well. And the Houston Astros have been a very, very strong lineup against right-handed pitching this season. And in fact, in the last 30 days, the Astros are in the top 10. They're ranked 7th in both team OPS and isolated power against right-handed pitchers. So even though you look at these two starters and you see a 3.03 ERA from Walker and a 2.22 ERA from Verlander, I think this total is set too low with two really good offenses here. So give me the over in the Astros-Mets. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Kansas City Royals. We have a 2:10 Eastern start time here. Dane Dunning and Zach Greinke are your starters. Now, you guys have heard it all season long from me. I do believe that these are the last couple seasons we're going to see from Zach Greinke on the mound. Just not a pitcher, not the same pitcher he used to be. He's more of a pitch-to-contact guy, and he hasn't really had a lot of success with it. At the beginning of the year, his ERA was below 3 for a little while. I said, watch the regression. This guy is not going to be able to keep it up. And now you look at 4.68 ERA, a 1-4 record, only 29 strikeouts in 57 2/3 innings. Now, he did have a really successful outing against the Oakland A's last time out, but he's not facing the Oakland A's here. He's facing the Texas Rangers, a lineup that's been above average against right-handed pitching in the last 30 days offensively, which is something we're not used to seeing from Texas. At the beginning of the season, they were not very good against righties, so to see those improvements against right-handers, very promising. And Dane Dunning, other than Martin Perez and maybe John Gray, I think Dunning has been one of the more reliable starters in this Rangers rotation. Now, the bullpen for Texas is not always easy to watch, in my opinion. Even though they've got a good bullpen ERA, I do worry about their regression as in terms of projected WAR, they are one of the worst bullpens in the league. But I do think in this spot, Dane Dunning is good enough. I think the Rangers back him up offensively. I like the Texas Rangers here on the money line. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mike Clevinger and Madison Bumgarner are your starters for this one. Now, we saw these two teams play about a week ago, so we saw these two starters face the opposition as well. Mike Clevinger pitched pretty well, nothing crazy. 4 innings, giving up 1 earned run and a home run, 3 strikeouts, did have 2 walks allowed, but that was a 10-4 Padres win. While Madison Bumgarner really struggled against the Padres in the last outing he had, he was the opposition in that 10-4 loss for the Arizona. He only went 4 innings himself and gave up 9 hits, 6 total runs. 4 of those were earned. He did have 5 strikeouts, which is a little promising to see. We're actually seeing Bumgarner earn some more strikeouts as of late, but I still can't back him in this spot. The Padres have been good against left-handed pitching this season offensively, and even though Machado is still out of the lineup, I think San Diego is good enough offensively to get some runs on Bumgarner early, rely on Clevinger and a very, very good Padres bullpen in the end. So I'm going to take San Diego here. Pretty good price we have with the Padres. Give me them on the money line. In our next matchup, we see the San Francisco Giants hosting the Detroit Tigers in Oracle Park. We're going to see Ronnie Garcia and Alex Wood as your projected starters. Now, Alex Wood's a guy that I do think is getting a little bit unlucky on the mound unsustainably. You look at Wood, 8.65 Ks per 9, 2.66 walks per 9, and a solid .93 home runs per 9 rating this season. But he's got a 5.05 ERA. I don't think that's going to hold for much longer. When you look, 3.62 FIP, 3.44 xFIP, so he's got some solid advanced numbers. And even though the Tigers do hit lefties better than they did hit righties, they really haven't done much against either this season. And, you look on the other side, Ronnie Garcia, guy who's got a 4.57 ERA. The biggest problem in Garcia's game has been the home run ball. Now, he didn't give up a home run last time out, but he has given up 8 home runs in 43 1/3 innings this season. And the San Francisco Giants, in terms of isolated power against righties, in the last 30 days, they are ranked 6th in baseball. So a very powerful lineup, especially against right-handed pitching. And I do think Garcia is in trouble in this spot on the road. I'm going to take the San Francisco Giants here. I think they're big, big favorites for a reason. I'll lay the run line with San Fran. In our next game, we see the Baltimore Orioles, one of the more profitable teams in baseball, taking on the Seattle Mariners, a team that just lost a couple players, 3 main position players, to suspension after that Angels-Mariners brawl the other day. Now we're going to see Austin Voth and Chris Flexen on the mound. We're going to have to wait and see if the Mariners players are going to appeal their suspensions, maybe able to buy some time and get a few games in before they have to serve their suspension time. Jesse Winker, I believe, 7-game suspension. That's pretty big for a position player, a guy who plays every day. That's a pretty big chunk of the season right there. But it was a pretty ugly brawl in the end. Now, Austin Voth is a guy that's going to be more of an opener this season. We've seen him as a starting pitcher before, but for the Orioles, mostly giving him 2 to 3 innings at a time when they need him. He's more of an extended reliever that can go 2-3 innings when the Orioles are either up by a good amount or down by a good amount, but he's going to be getting the opener here. He did that back on June 24th against the White Sox. Pretty successful, 3 innings, only 1 earned run allowed and 3 strikeouts. Orioles won that game 4-1 in the end, and I do think that Voth is going to get a good backup from his offense here against Chris Flexen, a guy that I've mentioned time and time again, as I do think is going to regress quite a bit as the season continues. He gave up a home run to Mike Trout last time out, 3 earned runs in his start against the Angels. And even though he was able to get the win, the Mariners were able to get the win in that game, I don't think Flexen pitched that well. He's not going to be able to get you some strikeouts. Really, the average exit velocity and hard hit percentage on his pitches is one of the worst in baseball. So I do like the Baltimore Orioles in this spot, especially when you're getting plus money here. So give me the O's on the money line. Next up, we see an NL East rivalry between the Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies. Kyle Wright and Ranger Suarez are your starters. Now, Kyle Wright's got a 3.18 ERA, and because of that, and because of the Braves' record, the Braves are favorites here by a pretty significant margin, but I do think the Phillies have a ton of value on them as the home dog in this spot. You know, Ranger Suarez is a left-handed pitcher, and the Braves have hit lefties very well this season, but when you look at Kyle Wright, something in his game has changed. He's starting to look like the Kyle Wright we've seen in seasons past. He gave up 10 base hits last time out in 5 1/3 against the Giants. He gave up 11 base hits the previous start to the Chicago Cubs. 9 earned runs allowed in his last 11 1/3 innings. Although it hasn't really been too much of the home run ball or the walks, the base hits are starting to rise. Teams are hitting him pretty hard. Now, in that Giants start, I believe he had 3 double play balls. So, sure, he is a guy that can get you some ground balls and get you out of innings via the double play. But you can't really rely on that as a starting pitcher. The Philadelphia Phillies have a solid lineup, even with Bryce Harper out of the lineup for the time being. And I think there's a ton of value on him in this spot, especially when you look at Ranger Suarez, a guy who's pitching a lot better recently than he did at the beginning of this season. He's given up only 2 earned runs in 4 of his last 5 outings, so he's a guy that's going to get you some consistent innings. The Phillies have won 3 of the last 4 games that Suarez has started in. I think when you're getting plus money like this, going up against a pitcher that's given up 21 base hits in his last 2 outings combined, I think there's some value here with Philadelphia, a team trying to claw their way back into the playoff race. So give me the Philadelphia Phillies here on the money line. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. So we just saw an NL East matchup. Now we see the AL East with the Red Sox and Jays. Nick Pivetta and Alek Manoah are your starters. And although it is kind of tempting to take that plus money with the Red Sox, a formidable team offensively, I just can't back him. When you look at Alek Manoah, he's been one of the stronger starters in the American League this season. And when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays offensively, they have been money against right-handed pitching as of late. Toronto's ranked 4th in the league in isolated power against righties in the last 30 days and number 1 in baseball in team OPS in that stretch against righties as well. Nick Pivetta, although he is pitching a lot better, and I mean a lot better now than he was at the beginning of the season, he's still a guy that I have my eyes on in terms of regression. He's given up at least 1 home run in 3 of his last 4 starts, and he also hasn't faced the toughest of lineups, the Oakland A's, the Los Angeles Angels, the Oakland A's again, Cleveland Guardians, St. Louis Cardinals, so some solid lineups in there, but nothing crazy. This is going to be the toughest matchup he's seen in quite a bit. I think the Blue Jays get to him. Give me the Toronto Blue Jays on the money line. Next up, we see an AL Central matchup between the Minnesota Twins and the Cleveland Guardians. Dylan Bundy and Cal Quantrill are your starters for this contest. Now, this is a very tough game for me. I think it's one of the tougher games on the board, and it makes sense when you look at the money line price being minus 110 apiece, a virtual pick'em in this spot. I'm going to lean with this Cleveland Guardians here. Dylan Bundy has pitched better in his last 2 outings, but he's only a few starts removed from some of the worst stuff we've seen from him in his career back against the Blue Jays, the Yankees, and the Tigers, where the Twins weren't able to win those games, and he was not even able to get through 5 or 6 innings of sharp work. The Twins have lost 4 of the last 5 starts that Bundy has pitched in, and Cal Quantrill, although I do think he will regress as the season continues, there's no doubt that the Cleveland Guardians bullpen is in a much better spot. We saw yet again in Game 1 of their doubleheader on Tuesday afternoon. The Twins had a lead in the late going, and then the bullpen blew the game, and the Guardians winded up winning. The Guardians seem to have the Twins' number right now. I'm going to take Cleveland here on the money line. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Sandy Alcantara and Andre Payante are your starters in this one. Now, I do think Sandy Alcantara is got to be up there in the running for NL Cy Young right now. although he struggled a little bit last time out against the New York Mets, giving up 2 home runs. If you watch that start, the numbers on paper really don't tell the full story of how he pitched pretty well. 7 innings he went through against a really tough New York Mets lineup. His defense did him absolutely no favors. There was plenty of times where the Marlins could have gotten out of certain innings. We saw when Jazz Chisholm went out with an injury, Willians Astudillo moved to second base, and it was not really good for the Marlins defense and the infield. We saw a double play opportunity where Astudillo tried to tag Nimmo. He missed the tag. He tried to get Marte out at first. He was safe at first after a review, so everybody was safe on the play. Just tough to watch if you were a Marlins fan or backer in that one. I think Alcantara bounces back here, and Andre Pallante is a guy that I am watching for regression. 2.03 ERA, but a 4.03 xFIP and a 4.28 FIP. He's only got 5.73 Ks per 9, and although he's limited home runs for the most part this season, he has given up 3 home runs in his last 3 outings, 1 in each of those starts. So I'm going to take the Miami Marlins here on the money line. I think we're getting Alcantara at a bargain price here, a price that we're probably not going to see for the rest of the season. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Chicago Cubs. Hunter Greene and Justin Steele are your starters. Now, I do think Justin Steele is a solid option on the mound for the Chicago Cubs, but I do worry about him in this particular spot because I've been taking the Cincinnati Reds when they're facing left-handed starters. You can take their team total over, or you can just take them on the money line like I am right here, getting plus money. Cincinnati Reds, number 4 in baseball in the last 30 days in team OPS against lefties, number 8 in isolated power. And in terms of WRC+, they are ranked 5th in the league. So the offensive numbers are really boosted up there for the Reds against those left-handed pitchers. Justin Steele, a 4.59 ERA. I think he's pitching better than that total, but still, the walks have been an issue. He's got a 1.45 whip this season, so a ton of base runners being allowed. Last time out, 5 2/3 innings, 6 total runs. 5 of those were earned, 2 home runs allowed. He's given up 3 home runs in his last 2 outings combined. Not really a pitcher that you would want to see giving up home runs, as he's more of a pitch-to-contact guy. So I do worry about Steele here. Hunter Greene is one of the more volatile pitchers in baseball. He's either going to go out there and perhaps throw a no-hitter and lose the game outright when the Reds don't score for him, or he's going to give up 6 runs, 3 home runs against the Dodgers like he did last time out. It just depends on what Greene you're getting, but he's a guy that when he is on, he's virtually unhittable. He's got 88 Ks in 70 innings, so he's got amazing strikeout stuff. And the Chicago Cubs aren't really a juggernaut offensively against right-handed pitching, so I'm going to take a chance here with Hunter Greene, especially at that plus money price. Give me Cincinnati on the money line. Next up, we see an NL West matchup between the LA Dodgers and the Colorado Rockies. Julio Urias and German Marquez are your starters for this contest. Now, Urias is a guy that has pitched well this season. He's pitched well for the last couple of years for the Dodgers. But at Coors Field, it's been a different story in his career. And usually I don't really look at how a pitcher pitches career-wise against a certain team or even at a location, as you know, a lot of the teams change each year. But Coors Field is one of those stadiums. It's the more hitter-friendly ballpark in the league, number 1 for offense. We see double-digit totals every single time just because the ball travels at a great rate because of the altitude difference. And Urias' numbers at Coors Field have not been good at all. 42 2/3 innings pitched in his career, a 5.91 ERA, only 29 strikeouts in those 42 innings, 50 base hits allowed, and a whip of 1.453, only 6.1 Ks per 9. He has really struggled against this Rockies lineup on the road at Coors Field in his career, and the Rockies this season have hit left-handed pitching very, very well, so I do worry about Urias in this spot. And when you look at German Marquez, he's a guy that's been improving his game. He had a miserable start to the season. His ERA is still above 5.5, but he's pitching a lot better as of late, including his last outing against one of the better lineups against in baseball against right-handed pitching in the Minnesota Twins. He went 7 2/3, 3 hits, no earned runs. So Marquez is improving his game. Urias has struggled at Coors. The Rockies have hit lefties well, and the Rockies have honestly played very well against the Dodgers at Coors Field in the last few seasons. Give me the Colorado Rockies here on the run line, getting 1.5 runs. Next up, we see our final game of the night between the Chicago White Sox and the Los Angeles Angels. 2 teams that were expected big things this year and have disappointed quite a bit thus far. We're going to see Michael Kopech and Shohei Ohtani on the mound for this contest. 2 guys with sub-3 ERAs this year, but I do trust Ohtani a little bit more right now on the mound. Michael Kopech is a guy that I think needs to be able to strike out batters to have success. He's not really a pitch-to-contact guy, and when he's only had 57 Ks in 62 2/3 innings this season, and he's only had 6 strikeouts combined. We can even go back to his last 3 starts, 6 strikeouts combined in his last 3. that is very, very worrisome. Now, I know the Angels have been disappointing, and I wouldn't really want to lay this kind of price with LA, but I think it's the only option we have. Shohei Ohtani's been very sharp on the mound. We know the top four of this Angels lineup is very, very loaded, and I think they'll be able to do enough damage on Kopech to get the win in this spot. So give me the Los Angeles Angels here on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday, June 29th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.